bloom into you. Yagate Kimi Naru only seemingly tells a story like so many others. Coming of age, discovering one's preferences, one's identity, tale of two girls slowly falling in love. But is it really a love story? Can we even speak of love when one of them states she won't ever fall in love and the other one does not expect to be loved? Calling it a love story is deceitful. This manga, originally written by Nio Nakatani, later on adapted into an anime that covers half of manga's story, decided to approach the subject of love from an entirely new angle and create a refreshing perspective. One I haven't seen so far in any love story, regardless of the genre or medium. In some ways, I actually found it groundbreaking. And if you aren't a manga or an anime fan, like my experience with these is pretty medium, don't get discouraged by the package of the story, because no matter how it's told, whether it's a manga, an anime, or even if it were to be adapted into a Western-style animation, it really is worth it to let yourself go, to dig in, and follow this tale of two girls. That's one of the most charming, immersive, intimate love stories I have ever encountered. Yuu Koito is Bloom Into You's main protagonist. Majority of the time we follow the story from her point of view. She is a first-year high school student who doesn't know what it's like to fall in love. She joins the student council when she meets Toko Nanami. Yuu is a very much unrealistic and romanticized view of love, drawn mostly from shoujo manga. She expects that feeling of love would overwhelm her, and when she does not experience it when she'd expected, she comes to the conclusion that she is incapable of falling in love with anyone. And as things progress along, with Toko, Yuu continues to deny to herself that her own developing feelings are in fact those of love.
心臓の音がする。私のじゃない。先輩の音だ。だってこれじゃ早すぎるから。
Toko Nanami is the story's second protagonist. From time to time we get an introspective into her own thoughts. She's a second-year, popular and praised high school student, a member of the student council which she later becomes the president of, best friend of Sayaka Seki, Toko's classmate and fellow student council member. She hides her insecurities from everyone except for Yuu, the girl she falls for very early on in the story, almost immediately upon meeting her. Her life's goal is to achieve perfection by becoming exactly like her sister, who passed away some years ago, because she does not know who she is. Very early on, Bloom Into You sets the ground for the story. Toko, upon finding out Yuu considers herself incapable of loving, confesses to her that she could see herself falling in love with her, and she does pursue that feeling actively, seeking out Yuu's presence.
君のこと好きになりそう。わからない。この人が。
They get closer. Yuu, initially surprised, does not oppose Toko's advances. In fact, she even agrees to becoming the manager of Toko's presidential campaign over her best friend Sayaka. She follows along when Toko offers walking home together, and when Toko is trying to be alone with Yuu, she does not oppose either. Still very much lost within that relation, she even initiates some contacts on her own. At this point of the story, I personally felt a bit confused. How is it that Toko falls in love as quickly? Does this make sense story-wise? Or was the narrative rushed? Why does Yuu go along with this? But over time we get all the answers. One of the things that I found absolutely charming was the fact that Yuu and Toko forming relationship happens far away from their classmates' knowledge. Almost in a separate timeline of their own. And it sneaks up on us, the viewers, as well. Their story, their love, it happens beside the train rail crossing, right beside a red light symbol, where Toko decides to go for a kiss. Their love happens in the council office as everyone leaves, and Yuu stays behind to be with Toko, still claiming she won't fall in love. It happens in a shed during sports day events. It happens close to the bridge, where they sometimes take a detour home and where Yuu makes promises she did not intend to break, which will later on lay a shadow on their story and become its most important aspect.
本当はどうして欲しいのか言ってください。 私といて。はい。寂しい時甘えさせて。はい。他の人を好きにならないで。私のことを嫌いにならないで。はい。
And these kinds of promises, they are very unusual for a love story. In fact, I don't think I have ever encountered one that includes making someone promise they won't fall in love with them, and actually meaning that. Because Yuu and Toko's tale also happens in Yuu's room, where they share an intimate conversation that revealed to us reasons behind Toko's willingness and calm acceptance not to be loved.
ユウは私のこと好きにならないでね。分かってますよ。私は自分のこと嫌いだから。私の嫌いなものを好きっていう人のこと。
Toko does not do it passively aggressively. She's honest. She does not expect Yuu to fall for her. Again, Bloom into Yuu has excellent reasons for it, which will soon be revealed to us. And it actually shocked me that despite such obvious contradictions, the story actually works. It just makes sense. Ever since Toko's sister died, she struggled with who she is, to the point where she realized she hates herself. It is then when she made a decision to wear masks in front of everyone except for Yuu. Yuu is the only one that makes her feel like herself. The only true thing that Toko has in her life is her feeling of love for Yuu. And that is also why she willingly accepts the fact that Yuu claims she will not fall in love with her, finding it enough she can be there for her.
小糸さんは誰かを特別に思えないって知ってる。私のことも好きにならない。それでいいの。だから好きでいさせて。
The only two people that more or less have an insight into these relations are Maki and Sayaka. Maki, Yuu's classmate, is aromantic. He doesn't want to play the lead in his own life. He's okay with the role of an observer. He's the closest thing in the story to us, the viewers. Very early on, he accidentally sees Yuu and Toko's kiss. Ever since then, he actively confronts Yuu about her own feelings, noticing even before she does that she is in fact falling in love, that she puts Toko's happiness before her own.
ナナミ先輩が一方的に君のこと気に入ってるみたいに見えていたけど、ちゃんとナナミ先輩のこと好きなんだね。
Sayaka, on the other hand, Toko's best friend, has been deeply in love with her for years. She does realize there's something going on between Yuu and Toko, so she stays wary of the situation, at the same time putting her own feelings aside, believing that her own confessing would only be a burden to Toko. In a way, she also puts Toko's happiness first. And then there's us. We observe their feeling grow, blossom, bloom. We are allowed to be a part of this intimate process. And as every good story should, we are rather shown the development of their feelings, instead of being told that they develop. In fact, if anything, we are told otherwise by the protagonists themselves. Because what's the most ironic thing is that expecting not to fall in love created the most beautiful love story. It was not a bitter, contradictive expectation, not a passive-aggressive statement, not even a lie. Toko did not expect to be loved. She expressed her reasons perfectly well, which led to Yuu's even more extensive efforts to influence Toko's negative view of herself and change it. What helped her achieve that was bloom into Yuu's main plot's crucial event, School Council organizing a theater play. It's not just an ordinary play either. In Toko's opinion, it's supposed to be a final act of her becoming just like her sister was, finishing the one thing she never got to do before her death. Theater play written by Yuu's friend tells a story of a girl, played by Toko, who lost her memory. She does not remember who she was, and while at the hospital, 3 people visit her: her girlfriend, her brother, and her friend, presenting her 3 different versions of who she was prior to the accident, who she was to them. The girl feels like she has to pick one of these masks and assume that personality. Initially, script's play ended with her picking the facade presented by her girlfriend, played by none other than her best friend Sayaka, which at the time actually worried me, knowing that Sayaka is very much in love with Toko. But there's another character in the play. portrayed by Yuu, who knew it was not a good solution at all to pick one of these masks. It was the nurse taking care of the girl. Nurse talks to the girl and tells her she does not need to be anything for anyone. She tells her she only knows her, not her past selves, and she appreciates her for who she is now. In an ultimate act of love, because at this point Yuu knew that she loves Toko, Yuu asks her friend to change the script and make the girl realize she needs no masks.
やっぱり変えない？え？主人公が3人の中から誰かを選ぶのとは違う別の結末にできないかな？
She can carry on and exist just as she is. And by doing so, Yuu hopes to help Toko realize she doesn't need to change. Around that time, Yuu finally came to a conclusion. She is in fact in love with Toko. She broke the biggest promise she ever made to her, not to fall in love, and she despises the idea of Toko hating herself. She even yells it out loud when Toko leaves for the train station. Events surrounding the play split Bloom into Yuu's story into two parts, showing us two phases of love. While in the first part, Toko was the one seeking out Yuu's attention, showing her affection, while Yuu remained somewhat passive. In the second part, roles have changed. The story created a contrast and almost mirrored itself. Now, it was Yuu that struggled with her growing feelings for Toko, not being able to properly express them, while Toko found an inner peace and believed it's best to leave things the way they were. Yuu found herself in an impossible scenario. On one hand, she is an empathetic person. She always puts Toko's well-being first. On the other hand, she knows that Toko's well-being depends, in her own opinion, on not allowing anyone to love her, as loving her would contradict her self-hatred. Yuu struggles. She bottles up her feelings, while actively pursuing what clearly is a relationship. They spend time together on a regular basis. They share gestures only couples do. Yuu likes to play with Toko's hair, a sign of her affection. Toko likes to put her head close to Yuu in a very much submissive act, unlike the confident person everyone considers her to be. Their connection also becomes more physical. And when Yuu cannot handle it anymore, she blows up, then she runs away. In Yuu's head, by loving Toko, she ruined their bond. She broke the biggest promise she ever made. Toko instantly realizes that by insisting that Yuu does not fall in love with her, she forced Yuu to repress her feelings. She also realizes that her insistence on not being loved has forced Yuu to keep her feelings to herself, and she's ashamed of how much she's hurt Yuu. She wants to fix it, but she is afraid. She knows that allowing herself to be loved equals her accepting who she is, not who she aims to be. Yuu has previously announced she won't ever fall in love with any of Toko's masks. But she fell in love with Toko, that has been slowly shown to her while they were alone, when their story was happening, and by doing so, she identified her. She validated her for who she was, and not for someone who wished to be a replica. Due to misconceptions, miscommunications, they both created a system of beliefs that they followed and did not reevaluate, even though they were actively giving it up by progressing their bond. Yuu thought love was supposed to be something else. She understood love to be a sudden, overwhelming feeling and did not know what it actually was. That it meant accepting someone for who they are and not for who they aim to be, for all the wrong reasons. After all, everything Yuu did for Toko was the purest form of love, being there for her, supporting her whenever she needed a shoulder to rely on, putting her needs above her own, changing the script so she can accept herself, and last but not least, making sure she won't fall in love with her because Toko has asked her not to. She sabotaged her own emotions and tossed them aside. All for Toko. Toko, on the other hand, ever since her sister died, not only grieved but struggled to understand who she was. Just like her play's character, she wore several masks to try and fit in within everyone's expectations. And the only place she felt like herself was by Yuu's side. At the same time, scared of loneliness and rejection, she realized she does not want for Yuu to love that version that she herself despises. While Toko's school trip to Kyoto, she was faced with Sayaka's love confession. It was then when she declared out loud she is already in love with someone else. This declaration meant more than the usual ones she presented to Yuu, and this was actually my favorite part of the tale. Toko was ready to allow herself to be vulnerable. I was kind of scared that, being as lost as she was, that she would make the wrong decision and she'd settle for something more familiar, like Sayaka, who's been there for her for years. But instead she rushed back to Yuu the very second that she got back from the trip and confessed that she not only loves Yuu, more importantly, she is ready to be loved. She now understood that even if she changes, even if she stops wearing masks, stops looking to be like her sister, she can still be loved because she herself kept loving Yuu. And she changed too. Person that Toko fell for, person unable to love, was gone. But the feeling was still very much there. To look for the exact moment when Yuu fell in love with Toko, that would contradict the very essence of Yuu's feelings towards her. Feelings that did not overwhelm her immediately. We can only speculate when she realized that she is falling in love, which was also the moment that began her inner struggle that we were part of. Waiting until Yuu finds the courage to tell Toko she fell in love with her despite promising not to. And when she finally did, that was an ultimate act of validating Toko. Blue into Yuu was not at all a sad story, despite some of its clearly tragic aspects. This story does have a happy ending, and it's one that we deserved, one we actually rarely see in similar stories. It does not finish with Toko and Yuu's confession, it goes on. It shows us how they progress, how they are happy, how they develop their bond, how they're together even after some years. At the same time, it shows certain aspects of the relation without overly sexualizing it. And more than that, it proves to so many lost LGBT viewers that same-sex relationships can last, and that bury your gaze trope is very much done. Bloom Into You did something amazing. It showed us that not wanting to be loved, actually not wanting to be loved, created one of the most beautiful love stories. Thank you so much for watching.